Hello, and welcome to Rock Your Block, where we outreach and highlight community impact. I'm your host, Larry Laws. On today's segment of First Home Alliance, we have a very special guest. He's a graduate of Pennsylvania State University with a dual degree in information sciences, technology, and Spanish. After graduating, he began his career in Washington, D.C. with the federal government. As a renter, he bounced around for nearly 10 years from numerous apartments throughout the Washington, D.C. area before launching his escape. Please welcome to our show our new homeowner, Michael Barnes. Welcome, Michael. Welcome to the studio.
Oh, thank you, Larry.
Yes. Well, before we get started, and we do want to get right on the way, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you?
Sure. As you said, my name is Michael. I'm originally from Youngstown, Ohio. I've been in the area for about 10 years now. Over 10 years now, actually.
Yes. So what brought you to Washington, D.C.?
My first job right out of college did.
Okay. I see that you studied Spanish.
I did.
Yes. And so did the job give you opportunity to use that?
Not this particular one, but I do use it when I do travel abroad.
Okay. Yes. And so I really want to get to know you here in our audience, because this is a celebration. First Home Alliance, of course, we work with a lot of community members. In past years, first-time home buyers, is something that we enjoy. We enjoy bringing those stories. We enjoy because we want more, especially young members of our community to get involved and actually, be excited about home ownership. And so, how was it renting in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, renting was tough. Coming from Ohio, the market, the apartment market, and just the cost of living is much lower. So coming here was sticker shock. And every year, the price for rent just kept increasing to the point where it just seemed to be more than what it was worth to actually rent.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so, as a renter, did you get a chance to enjoy the area here in D.C.?
Oh, I did. I've actually lived in, I started off in Maryland, then moved to D.C. and Virginia, so I had a taste of all three.
Yeah, yes. So what are some of the things you like to do? What are your hobbies?
I definitely enjoy traveling abroad and domestically, spending time with my family and friends, of course, bowling, and playing piano.
Yes. Oh, you got the keys, huh? All right. And do you have family here in the area?
I do not actually, but I do have a host of close friends who are like family now. Okay.
And you have any your family members that you reach out to often?
Oh, definitely. I reached out to my immediate family, my siblings, my parents, nieces and nephews, and pre-pandemic they came to visit quite often.
Okay. And how's the communication now?
It's much better. We still keep in contact. Through the pandemic, we communicated over Zoom, and now we get to see each other a little bit over not only Zoom, but in person.
Okay. And so you did mention how long you had been here. When did you move to the area?
It was around December 2008.
2008. Mm-hmm. And so those 10 years, can you recount the places that you actually rented?
I can actually, yes.
Yes. And so what were some of the areas?
I started off in Hyattsville with one of my good friends from college. I lived there for several years, and then I tried living in the actual city. That was one of my, aspirations in coming to this area was to live in a larger metropolitan area. So I tried living in D.C. for 2 years. The rent, it seemed economical at the time, but then following my first year, it increased, and so I ended up moving to Virginia. Okay. And I spent, I think, about 2.5 years in Virginia, and then kind of the same thing happened. Rent started increasing to the point where it just seemed like I was paying more than what the apartment was actually worth.
Yes. And so did you actually, coming up as you're growing up, were you in a rental situation, were you in home ownership?
Home ownership. So
yes.
My parents owned a home since the time I was born, and they raised all of my siblings and I in that home.
Okay. And so you as a renter, did you see yourself staying a renter for a while, or was it? What was it?
It was heartbreaking. I think one of my goals in life was to actually own a home. But living in the area and seeing just the price of rent constantly increase caught me off guard. And then looking at the prices of homes, it just seemed like home ownership was out of reach for me.
Yes, and so it sounded like there are barriers there. And so the one of the barriers you just mentioned, it was the cost of getting into a home. What other barriers did you see that was there that was preventing you from becoming a homeowner sooner?
I think just lack of knowledge. You know, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how much I couldn't afford. I didn't know the entire homeowner process, you know, going through obtaining your financing for the mortgage, finding a realtor, and then actually finding the home.
Yes. Yes, and so what drove you to First Home Alliance? How did you seek out HUD-approved housing counseling agency?
Right. So I was driving in my neighborhood, and I came across a career, or I think it was a home ownership fair that was offered through VHDA. Okay. And so I stopped by and ended up going to one of the sessions that they had for first-time home buyers, and that's where I met my housing counselor, Charlene Watkins, and she was with First Home Alliance. Okay. And so after the session, it was a very quick intro session. You know, I spoke with her. She provided a lot of information, the education that I was missing, to understand what that process looked like. Okay. And so she encouraged me to look into a more extensive class where she dove into the details of the home ownership process, and then I would also receive a home ownership, or I'm sorry, first-time home buyer certificate. Okay. And so I followed up with her. I went to the class that was offered for the first-time home buyer. And it was just very educational. It really led me to believe that, you know, homeownership was now a possibility.
Okay, and I was trying to recount because I know that you actually attended the class in 2018, mm-hmm. And so you actually came to one of the fairs exhibits that VHDA and First Home Alliance was partnering mm-hmm. prior to. That's great. And so you was actually living in Virginia during that time? I
was, yes.
Okay. And so it seemed that you did come on and start receiving the mentorship of Charlene, our senior counselor, and attended one of our first-time homebuyer classes. Mm-hmm. And so tell us a little bit about the class you attended.
The class, so I think it was several hours. It was actually on a Saturday.
It's long.
It was, but she made it enjoyable. And so in the class, she had various experts throughout the homeowner process come in and educate the class on, I guess, one of the most important pieces, which is the financing. Mm-hmm. Understanding, you know, what it actually would cost to own a home. There were realtors who came in and spoke about the process of actually looking for the home and finding what you want. And sometimes, you know, there are times when you have to give up some of the things that
Correct.
You want on your list.
Right,
you know,
yes.
You have a wish list, and all. You know, it's not possible to find everything on your wish list within your given price range. But again, I think the most important thing that I learned from that class was the affordability, which was really important, and then finding a financial package that was good for me. Yes,
and so do you recall inside the class and actually building that home buyer team? And so mm-hmm. how was the working with the team of professionals that you was able to gather to get through this process?
Right, it was wonderful. So I, again, followed up with Charlene after the class, and we had a one-on-one where we reviewed my financing. Mm-hmm. And she had a heart-to-heart with me with the wish list that I had, and kind of showed me what was available within the price range that, according to the budget that I had created and that we had reviewed, what was attainable to me. And I think that really helped bring things to light for me. And after, you know, we went through the financing, ensured that everything on my credit was in check, it wasn't until then that, you know, we actually created my wish list. Okay. You know, this is what I want, this is what I would like to have. And she introduced me to my realtor, Kite Golden.
Okay.
And those two were the dynamic duo, you know. We built a partnership that, it still lasts today. And so I think, you know, they were there throughout the process. Any questions that they had, they were able to answer. Regardless of the day, time of day, you know, they were there for me.
Yes. Okay. And there was a step in there. I understand that you met the realtor, but you also we want to talk about that loan process, because I know you went through your financing.
Yes.
You talked about your credit, and you actually was eligible for a loan. And so I want you to talk about that loan process right after the break.
All
okay?
Right.
All right. And so we're about to take a short break. But before we go, I would like to remind you that First Home Alliance is a HUD-approved housing counseling agency serving the Washington, D.C. National Capital Area. If you are a first-time home buyer or a homeowner in need of mortgage assistance, please visit the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development website to find a HUD-approved agency in your area. We'll be right back after the break. Stay tuned.
With First Home Alliance, a little bit about First Home Alliance. We are a HUD-approved housing counseling agency that was established in 2002 by our executive director, Larry Law. He established the nonprofit. He established it because his mother purchased her first home at the age of 65. And everyone was like, how did you do that? Because her income was really low. And so that's how he found out about the USDA program. And so through the USDA program, his mother was able to purchase her first home. It intrigued him to see how he could help individuals basically experience the American dream of homeownership. So he established the nonprofit. Mission is to increase homeownership to low to moderate income families. And so what does First Home Alliance do?
Welcome back. You're watching Rock Your Block, and I'm your host, Larry Laws of First Home Alliance. And if you're just now tuning in, we're joined today with our new homeowner, Michael Barnes. Michael, before the break, at first I said I was going to loosen up a little bit here. Let's talk about that lending process and qualifying for that loan. And so, what type of loan did you qualify for and use?
So I qualified for a conventional loan.
Okay.
So Charlene helped me shop around for a loan to make sure that it was what I needed, would fit my budget, would fit me. And so, you know, after going over the budget and reviewing the information, speaking with some of the lenders, I selected a particular one, and I received a pre-approval for my mortgage.
So you actually have either maintained good credit, or you was able to get your credit to a certain standard there to qualify for the conventional loan.
Correct.
Yes, okay. And actually getting that pre-approval, that condition, once you start working with the loan officer, how long did that take?
Oh, it took quite a while. And I think my case was a little unique. So it was actually several months. I remember there was a lot of documentation, you know, verification of employment, of income, and several requests for that information.
Okay. And so how was your response with the loan officer getting those documents? They asked for them, you got them right away?
I did as quickly as I could.
Okay.
So what helped was that, you know, through the first-time homebuyer class and working with Charlene, I was anticipating what they were requesting. So I had everything lined up, ready to go when they needed.
Okay, and so you work with the loan officer. You got your loan. You got the range that you could actually afford, and then from there you actually talk to the realtor. Now, that time that you spent with the counselor and that time that you spent with the loan officer, did it pay off when it came time for the realtor? Once you went in with the realtor, how was that process? Letting him know this is what I'm looking for, the price range, and for him to take you shopping. How was that?
It was very smooth. So, like, as I mentioned before, I didn't know the process. I didn't know how much I could afford prior to working with Charlene. And so actually having that pre-approval of what I could afford really helped the realtor review the information that I had on my wish list, if you will,
Okay.
To identify what I actually wanted, and especially, I guess, the areas that I wanted to live in.
Okay. Yes. And so how many, can you recall how many properties you actually walked into?
I think I walked into about 6 or 7.
Well, that's not bad. That's not. Now, how many did you actually view on paper or on the screen?
Oh, hundreds, if not thousands, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started off, reviewing the information that the realtor sent, but also I conducted my own searches as well.
Okay. And working with the realtor, was you able? Was he relatable? I mean, was it? What was some of the time periods that you was able to connect with the realtor and go out and look at properties?
Right. My realtor Kite was extremely flexible. He took me on tours of homes, after work, over the weekend, whatever was convenient to me. And our relationship was phenomenal. I think that he definitely understood what I was looking for and what I wanted, and he was able to deliver on that.
Okay. And I know that the market has changed a little bit in the last 2 years. And so during that time period, how many contracts did you submit?
I actually submitted one.
Really?
I did.
Only one contract?
Well, I'm sorry, 2. There are actually 2. So I guess the first, I was looking at a fixer-upper. I thought that was what I wanted at the time. And so, I viewed the home. I told Kite that I wanted to make an offer on the home. And so he, through the class that I took with Charlene, I learned about the home inspection process. And so I knew I had to have a home inspection. That was the best thing for me. And so I hired an inspector to review the home with me and kind of see, I guess, the details that I missed, right, as a first-time home buyer. And so it was very eye-opening. And so I think through that process, it helped me see that, even though on TV it looks like, hey, these fixer-uppers, they're easy, they're what you want. In reality, after reviewing the inspection report and kind of what it would cost to renovate the home to what I wanted it to be, it just wasn't worth it.
Okay. And so do you think that was a good investment in actually contracting a home inspector?
Oh, definitely. I think it saved me at least $100,000, if not more.
So you saw a fixer-upper wasn't really for this first-time home buyer?
Not for me.
Not for you. Yes. Okay. And so, so you went through that contract and home inspection. Well, basically, with that, you was able to get out of the contract that you had submitted. Okay?
Correct.
Yes. Well, that's good. And so, with that, did you carry that same knowledge to the next contract that you submitted and requested a home inspection?
I did. Yes. For the second contract, which is actually the home that I ended up purchasing, I ended up going with a more up-to-date home.
Okay.
One that I didn't have to put too much work into. But I did still have that inspection.
Okay.
Because you never know, what's crawling behind the walls or what's in the ceiling, things like that. And so the inspector really provided a thorough inspection as well as the information I needed to how to maintain the home. And I think that's what really helped me.
Yes.
That was that educational piece that I was missing.
Correct. Yes, yes. And so with that detailed inspection, in reference to upkeep of the appliances, and so are you able to go in, maybe the seasonal things that they have checked out, like whether it's the smoke alarms or the filters and things of that sort?
Yes, definitely. So I do the lightweight, but I hire the professionals if needed for the more complicated ones.
Okay, all right. And so you went through with the home inspection, and you were successful with that. And then after the home inspection, you was moving towards closing. How was that going to closing? How was that?
For me, it wasn't as smooth as I would have hoped. And so earlier I mentioned that the lender had requested documentation several times, which I provided. But unfortunately, when I went to closing the first time, the lender hadn't completed my entire package. And so there were things that they had not done on their end that kind of prevented me from closing on the house on the initial closing date.
Okay.
So that was a little disappointing, but I had Kite and Charlene in my back corner rooting me on, helping me where they could to ensure that everything was in place for me when I went to closing the final time.
Okay, sounds good. And so, yeah, so that was a celebration.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. And so now that becoming a homeowner, what has changed?
What has changed? So I think when I started, again, I was concerned about affordability, but again, working with Charlene, I'm still able to do the things that I love, which is traveling, spending time with family, things like that. There's also the maintenance of the house, which is new. So unlike the apartments that I lived in throughout the area.
So you're the landlord, right?
I'm the landlord. I either have to do the repairs myself or hire a professional who can complete the repairs for me.
So had you went to Home Depot prior to become a homeowner?
I had not.
Really? Okay.
Only with my father back at home, but here, definitely not.
Yes, yes. And so do you have a Home Depot card now?
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Okay. Yes. And so what would you say some of the lessons learned that you learned, through this process?
I think the first is education, just making sure that you understand the process, what it takes to actually apply for the loan, and affordability, right? That was my main concern coming to this area, was the astronomical prices within the area. So those are two of the top lessons learned that I have, as well as that home inspection. Had I went with the fixer-upper, which I saw the first time, without having that inspection, I don't think I would be where I am today. I wouldn't be a happy homeowner.
Yeah. You would have the Home Depot card by now.
Oh, I would.
Probably Lowe's too.
Definitely.
Yes. Okay. And so what would be some of the don'ts? Tell individuals that don't do this.
Right. I would say don't count yourself out. And I think that's something that I did for several years, was just looking at, the apps for searching for a home and looking at the price and the estimate that they give you. That's not reality. That's not your specific financial life that you have. And so I think that's one of the things that I would have done sooner, was actually look into homeownership sooner than I had. I think another don't is don't skip out on that home inspection.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, all right. And also, we're looking for encouragement. Encouragement for our audience. And you're still young, and we have a lot, especially during this time. Because we saw a lot of people your age. They saw their parents go through the foreclosure and the struggle of keeping their home. So they are sitting back, and not into that home buying arena. So what would you say to those that are sitting back, and what encouragement can you give them to go forward?
I would say start as soon as you can. Don't be afraid, because the market changes drastically year to year. Where I am today with my home and the value that how it has increased, I wouldn't be able to afford my home had I not purchased it when I did. And so I think that's the most important thing is, even if you don't think that you can go through the process or you can't afford a home, I would encourage you to become educated, take a first-time home buyer's class, go through the financing, ensure that your budget and your credit are in order to see what you can afford. It may be a reality for you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for coming here to the studio. And we look forward. We're going to invite you out at the end of the year so you can tell your story to our audience in person. But thanks for coming to the studio today.
Oh, thank you. And that sounds great. Thank you so much, Larry.
Great. Great. I hope you enjoyed this interview with our new homeowner, Michael Barnes. Now it's time to check our inbox and see how we can help rock your block. This is where we share recent questions sent to us from you, our viewing audience, about financial stability and housing. Today's question comes from Stafford, Virginia. I'm avoiding my landlord because I can't pay my rent. What should I do? Well, stop avoiding your landlord. If you are a Virginia resident struggling to pay your rent, ask your landlord to visit Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development website and apply for the Virginia Rent Relief Program. Virginia Housing is now administering relief for renters experiencing financial difficulties due to COVID-19 pandemic. Landlords can apply through Virginia Housing on behalf of their tenants and receive funds to pay delinquent rent payments dating as far back as April the 1st, 2020. I'm Larry Laws of First Home Alliance, and it's been my pleasure sharing with you our mission and highlighting the impact of our services. If you have questions about financial fitness or how we can help you and your family make the dream of homeownership a success, send your question to our inbox at help@firsthomealliance.org. And tune in to our show next time to see if your question was selected to be shared with our audience. You can easily get more information about our services by visiting us on the web at firsthomealliance.org. Thank you for watching today's segment of First Home Alliance. And join us next time to rock your block.
Glad to know that, some of this stuff about credit, buying houses is written down somewhere. A lot of the times it's always hearsay, like other friends or family members who have bought houses before, but they can never, tell you legit what you need to get done and do before buying a house.
I definitely think this class should be required for all first home buyers because a lot of times the real estate agent doesn't explain the process to you. So I think this is very important.
It's from the credit up to receiving a loan, and the most important thing is the process that you go through when you're buying the house, and there are a lot of process which you don't have idea about that before you take this class.
Speakers who came up and spoke about each section, they were very knowledgeable in their field, and I felt like it was relatable. They didn't just throw out a whole bunch of terms that went over my head, but they really explained it in a way to where I understood it, and I could even explain it to my children, and it was even easier for me to take home and kind of remember and process and apply to my next steps. The process was amazing.
They start first with the class before even finding a lender or agent. Because I did all that and I wasn't able to purchase, and then I was like, oh, you know what, there's a lot of information I'm not aware of. Let me just start from the beginning, to put everything on hold. Start from the beginning.
Piecing the information together, because you've heard things about the loans and about this and about the credit, but this is like a summary, and it just gives a clear flow of where to go with what you have and kind of building up a plan. So that kind of gives me a whole picture of where I needed to go and how to get there.